Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings, Danny SportsWrap, and I'll tell you what, 2020 is going to have to make one hell of a comeback in the last 6 months of this year in order to not be one of the worst years that we can remember. And certainly in the world of sports and in the real world, it's just been relentless. And in your own personal world, things get relentless too. And on top of all the things that are happening, this afternoon, I'll take my wife to the doctor to get a checkup on the broken ankle that she suffered a couple of weekends ago, which seems like, 6 months ago now. I think that everybody can think that back to the middle of March when the lockdown started and all this other stuff started ramping up, that it seems a heck of a lot longer ago than just 3 months. But it's not, and it's just the nature of the way things have gone. And what it really puts into focus is that's just fantastic when days like yesterday, Father's Day, come up, because it does remind you of the good things that you have in your life. And I had a fantastic Father's Day, and I'll talk about that after the first break. But it came in the context of a weekend and a few days where, after seemingly some rays of sunshine coming through the clouds, and even in bad circumstances, things of a positive nature maybe are moving forward as far as racial inequality. And even though there are painful moments in those things, perhaps there are positives, but then we just get bad story after bad story after bad story, and seeming lack of progress as far as getting back to the games that we have. In the end, I think there's going to be maybe somewhat of a certain weariness for these leagues to keep attempting desperately to get back into action in college football, with a lot of tests becoming positive, and the NBA supposedly wanting to start up in Florida, but Florida spiking incredibly as far as tests are concerned. It was a relentless drumbeat, and has been a relentless drumbeat, of bad news, NASCAR, racial stories, the whole thing. But in the end, I hope on your Sunday, your Father's Day, as a father or a son, had yourself a little bit of a breather, maybe a great cookout or meal or Zoom call as I had, and that provided a little respite. But I can't gild the lily here. There's going to be a lot of bad stuff on Monday Musings, Danny Sports Watch, that's for sure, because we're viewing a world of sports where the news is precious little positive. And we'll check out and try to come up with a fun thing or two amidst the clouds, and that'll all start up next. And happy day after Father's Day. There's a bright note, and one of just a few that we'll have today. My friends at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture are among the most accomplished and trusted clinics in the nation. Only one clinic has been rated in the top 5 in all 3 categories of chiropractic care, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, and that clinic is ASFCA. They have locations in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, and Lee Summit. Doctors Brad and Christina Woodle and their accomplished team of doctors and therapists will treat you like family, for the simplest of injuries to the most complicated conditions to avoid surgery. Whether you are seeking treatment for an injury or just looking to stay healthy and fit, this is the place for you. And it's been the place for me for almost 2 years now. I've been a strenuous daily exerciser for years, and as time goes on, that takes its toll. But regular appointments at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture have helped keep me ticking on, and even as the years pile up, their regular care has allowed me to keep to my regimen and feel great. If you want to feel the same, give them a call or visit them at asfca.com/Danny. They accept all insurances and are open Monday through Saturday, and make sure to mention that Danny Clinkscale recommended Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that. And moving on in age, as we all are, what do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dan. If they just contact me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back, and indeed, I hope your Father's Day was every bit as good as mine. It seems rather strange under the circumstances because I wasn't physically in the presence of either my father or my daughters yesterday, but I would have to say that Father's Day 2020 was one of the greatest that I had. Started off in mid-afternoon with my family back east and my dad on a Zoom call. He is in somewhat failing health and his capacities are certainly diminished, but we were able to put some smiles and laughs on his face as his sons and daughters and grandchild, in one particular case, gathered for a Zoom call. And my dad has to be almost prompted to maybe recognize us. Thankfully, our names are on the little Zoom boxes, and that helps him out a little bit. But he smiled, and he actually seemed to be engaged, and that was a great thing. And I don't know how many more Father's Days I'll have with my father, so I really treasured it yesterday, even though he was 1,500 miles away. And 1,500 miles away in each direction were my daughters as well, and we had an unbelievably great Zoom call, and we had a Zoom call cocktail hour. Maybe that helped it out a little bit, but I was on that call for 2 hours and probably could have been kept on going. And when it's your daughters and they're 26 and 23 years old, and after 2 hours they still seem eager to want to continue talking to you and reminiscing and telling stories and updating you on their lives, it really fills up your heart. And it fills up your heart in a situation where your heart really needs to be filled up. And I'll tell you what, getting back to my father for a second, I certainly wish that the Major League Baseball would play at least one game, maybe, because one of the joys that my father still has in his sedentary ways is watching games on television. And because of the state of mind that he's in, if they played one game, he could literally watch it every day. When I visited him last, it was basketball season, and the Celtics were playing, and he actually was watching the same game from a couple of weeks before, even though the Celtics had played subsequent games, and he had them in his DVR rack, but he didn't care. He was watching a game, and it was exciting, and the ball was going in the basket, and so one baseball game would do it. He reads the paper, so he knows they're not playing baseball, so he couldn't hoodwink him that way and just show some game from 3 years ago. But if they played just one baseball game, just one, then he'd be able to watch that. But more and more, it seems like playing one baseball game is getting farther and farther fetched. And now the problems aren't just financial, although those are still huge stumbling blocks. It seems that the games, which in many cases were thought to be played in little hubs or, who knows, stadiums, or in Florida, all kinds of ideas were still on the table. And those health protocols seem to be increasingly endangering baseball as well, in addition to the fact that financially the two sides seem to be so close in our minds, viewing it from afar, but certainly not in their minds. And Major League Baseball does not seem to want to move any more, and they haven't really moved that much. And the players now have health concerns added on to the fact that they're not particularly happy with the financial setup for a 60-game season, which now is being talked about as maybe a 54-game season or maybe a 48-game season. And the players would really rather have that moved up to maybe 66 or 68 games, but for each 5 or 6 games that are added on, apparently it's $4 or $5 million for each team in baseball, and they're pretty entrenched on not wanting to do that. The details just get really boring and onerous and almost turn your stomach in a time that we're dealing with so many real issues, and everybody would just like to see some baseball games played. There has to be some sacrifice on either or both sides here so that that can happen. And if it can happen, and that's the issue that's coming up more and more, is that can these things happen? We turn to college football, where positive tests are flying all over the place. Kansas State now has shut down their voluntary workouts. University of Texas did. Houston. Texas had 20 positive tests. It only seems like it's going to grow and grow and grow, and college football really seems to be in peril right now. And if college football is in peril, it's the same game as the National Football League, and we'll get to the NFL a little bit later on. But I said it in the open, and it deals with all of the sports right now. I'll deal with the NBA a little bit later on too, but sooner or later, this desperate desire to play the games, which is in many cases only financially rooted, I think will become wearisome to the point where people are going to throw up their hands and say, you know what, we're just giving it up for this year. And we've seen this happen, and in most cases the reaction hasn't been great. France shut down their soccer league. Later on, other leagues are playing. So in France, they're saying, well, why did we stop? The British Open canceled early, and now professional golf is being played, although the players in Europe aren't coming over here because they have to quarantine. So it is a complicated process, but if we continue to get steps backward, I think there is going to be a fatigue that will set in, and a sense of, let's refocus. Let's let this year play out. Let's see where we're at as 2021 dawns, and then maybe we can get back to the silliness of playing games and sports. That's where we seem to be right now. But this is Monday, and maybe next Monday it'll be different. Last Monday there seemed to be some optimism. This Monday it seemed like almost every shred of news that you get is a bad one, and not just as far as the finances, and not just as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Over the weekend, for the first time, NASCAR was going to allow fans into their racetrack, and they will be running this afternoon down at Talladega after the race was weathered out yesterday. But a far more significant thing happened after that postponement was announced, when a noose was found in Bubba Wallace's garage, and an investigation is going on, and who knows, it may be wrapped up by the time you hear this. But these stories are just so disturbing, and I know that sometimes people can toss them off as, well, it's just one crackpot who's doing this, but it's a reflection of things that are going on in the society. This was also the first race where NASCAR was not going to allow Confederate flags into the racetrack. And apparently among the 5,000 fans who entered the racetrack, nobody really tried to smuggle in a Confederate flag or wear a T-shirt that was basically based on the Confederate flag. But that didn't mean that outside of the track there was a significant presence of Confederate flags. And there was a flyover with a statement that said, defund NASCAR, and a Confederate flag flying. I read a story over the weekend about a store down in Branson that is called the Dixie Roundup or something like that, and they don't want to drop the Dixie, and they are selling Confederate flags like hotcakes down there, and it just is a very disturbing thing. And I don't really, somebody can try to explain to me why the Confederate flag means something to them, but when it's just wildly offensive to a huge portion of the society, the fact that people can't let this one thing go and actually use it as a badge of honor or a statement is just makes you shake your head. It just makes you absolutely shake your head. And I know that people within NASCAR and ESPN's very excellent reporter, Marty Smith, who obviously covers the sport and loves it, and he wants to say that it's not a reflection of the sport, but that you can't help it when things like that happen. And the only African American driver in the circuit has this thing happen in his garage. It's just a horrible thing, and we just get so many horrible things right now in sports. That's I guess why people are wanting to play the games so badly. But sports is far, far, far away from any kind of escape right now, and it really, really is a disturbing thing, and it makes you just not want to pay attention. I've got some other things that I don't want to pay attention to in the second segment, but those don't relate to real issues of the day. And the thing is, you can't get away from it. You know, the just go dribble crowd, I mean, it just is past. You can't. You don't want sports to be so dominated by this type of news, but in so many cases, it's too important. It's just too important to ignore, and sports is where we supposedly go for our playpen, but the playpen's been invaded for right now, and it's in many cases needed to be invaded. And while we'd rather just keep score and watch things and cheer for a winner, on television anyway, maybe not in person, when so many of the people who are so important to playing the games, operating the sport, are in a position where they are victims of hatred and brutality, there's just too much that's important. And then on top of that, and really prior to it, of course, the entire world was affected by something that was completely out of their control at the outset, and then maybe wasn't really handled as far as the control moving forward. And now we're seeing not even what people are calling a second wave, we're seeing a continuation of the first wave, and we are far, far away from thinking of this as a consistent memory. And, you know, hopefully, here we sit in June, that we will be able to look at maybe 2020 as an outlier and not just the start of a long, long period of things that are affecting our lives in a negative way day after day after day. Well, more bad news coming up, and maybe a little lighter note or two. I'll try. It's coming up next as we continue with Monday Musings, Danny's Sports Wrap, right here on the Reasonably Irreverent Podcast.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent Podcast after this.
I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
Hi, this is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery. Thank you, Kansas City, for supporting all the local restaurants during this time of crisis. Starting Monday, June 1st, the 23rd Street Brewery will be open our regular hours from 11 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. every day of the week. For dine-in and patio service, if you can believe that, we're open. During this phase, we will adhere to the Douglas County recommendations for restaurants, and please see our website or our Facebook page for details. Most importantly, we want all of our guests and staff to stay safe, and together we will all get through this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices. And we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back on this Monday, and certainly a lot of not-so-great things to talk about, and certainly one of those is the situation with Mike Gundy right now, and he is seemingly in a position where he's going to have a lot of trouble surviving what's going on down at Oklahoma State. He always has been a figure that probably was borderline, maybe thinking about leaving Oklahoma State, or they didn't have the greatest relationship with the power brokers there. And now, not only for wearing his T-shirt and making a rather tepid video sort of apology with his player Chuba Hubbard, and then making what was a more heartfelt apology subsequent to that, he now is being accused for using the N-word on multiple occasions while a player, and some people would say, well, that's a long, long time ago. Well, he was an adult at that time, and it's more the way that he's going to address it and handle it than the actual act of a young man a long time ago. And it'll just be interesting to see. And all these things are supposed to be learning experiences for people. Maybe somebody will view this and say, you know, when I was young a long time ago, I used that word and it's still in my head, and maybe occasionally I'll toss it off when I'm in a group with of friends and we don't care, or I'll tell a joke. Maybe that kind of stuff will end. Thankfully for me, I can rest easy in the fact that as far back as high school, I used to say something when somebody made a racial joke. Didn't make me very popular with those people, but I didn't like it. I wasn't going to laugh at it, and I would actually point it out. And maybe there'll be more of that. I don't know. Sometimes you just maybe keep quiet and walk away, and maybe you know that somebody's ignorant. You don't feel like you're going to change their mind anyway. But these are the little steps that we have to take, and Mike Gundy's wherewithal and his life are basically based on getting this right, and we'll see if he's able to in some way get it right and move forward. I heard a phrase today when I was watching the Get Up program, which was full of bad news, of course, on ESPN, and Brian Windhorst, their NBA expert, said, "Too big to fail" as far as the return of the NBA to the Orlando bubble, and I think he's wrong. I think that the NBA might play, but I don't think it's too big to fail. I think anybody who's saying that stuff right now is on a fool's errand, and even he said in a couple of weeks maybe the winds will have changed, but he said the momentum still is for playing basketball. But just think of what we heard even through the last 2 weeks about baseball, and experts still saying Buster only as late as Friday said baseball's going to be played 100%. And then, over the weekend, he's like, I don't know, the landscape doesn't look very good right now for a variety of reasons. And I think that's where we could be in the NBA. Health concerns, free agent concerns, all kinds of different things for these NBA players, the structure of this. And that's when I first got the thought that why the complete desperation to play? And yeah, in some cases it's monetary. Certainly there are players who are going to make a pretty decent amount of money even for a short period of time to get paid. And maybe they're not in the greatest financial situation and have squandered their money, or I don't know. And the owners, how much of the money can they really recoup from this? We don't know the backstories as far as television contracts and things like that are concerned. There's got to be some kind of point where people just say it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. But it does come in the context where some things are being played, like professional golf. And they played another tournament this weekend. They had one positive test, none the first week, one the second week. That doesn't affect things. It only affects Nick Watney, who gets sent away. But it raises questions. Nick Watney played in the tournament prior to this. The players are afforded the use of a charter plane that keeps them all away from other people, and they just move from one tournament to the next. Well, he didn't take the charter. He went home. And so, obviously, he was exposed to other things. He came back. He tested positive. He was around other golfers. Who knows what kind of effect this will have. In the end, they played a golf tournament without fans. It wasn't a setting where there were a lot of homes around the golf course, so you actually heard a little bit of applause with people having little parties out there. And on the course, it was just a birdie fest, and golf fans got to watch tremendous golf and people firing at flags and hitting the ball close, and Webb Simpson birding just about every hole on the back nine to win the tournament at 22 under par. And so when one sport is being played, when the Premier League is opening up over the weekend being played, and so far successfully, it empowers these other leagues, even if their steps forward are being blocked at every turn, seemingly. And that's probably what NBA owners or Major League owners or whatever are looking at and saying, well, if they can do it, we obviously can play. Playing a little bit's better than not playing at all. I don't know. At a certain point, maybe that is not going to be the case. I'll tell you what I have fatigue with, but generally I have fatigue with off-season football mania anyway. I like watching professional football. The Chiefs couldn't have had a more exciting season. Everybody's still kind of basking in that glow. The ESPYs were last night. I'll get to that in a minute. But today, for about an hour while I was working out, probably 75% of a sports show, Get Up on ESPN, was about NFL contracts, basically, and ad nauseum talking about it. And Dak Prescott's going to sign his franchise tag, and it's $31 million. And I know sports have been big money for a long time, but 31, it just makes you shake your head. And it comes in the context as well of Jamal Adams, who was a first-round draft choice, so he got a first-round draft choice's contract, which was a good one. He's unhappy with his contract now. He's making millions of dollars. And I think that right now you just don't want to hear it. I don't think a lot of people want to hear it. A quarter of the nation is unemployed. Those who are employed are probably underemployed. They have probably made some sacrifices financially. Do we really care about Dak Prescott's long-term contract? Do we really want to talk about Jamal Adams' potential landing spots for 7, 8, 9 minutes? I'm paid to watch sports shows. That's my business. But I was just left shaking my head a bit about this particular scenario. But there's no football to talk about. There's very little sports to talk about. A show like that is not going to spend 5 or 6 minutes showing highlights of a golf tournament or a European soccer match. They're going to talk about football because people are interested. I don't see how day after day after day after day people can care about Dak Prescott's contract or Jamal Adams' contract and the millions of dollars they're going to make, or the more millions of dollars they're going to make. More to the point is whether somebody's going to sign Colin Kaepernick, and that hasn't happened yet, and people will try to, well, they have a pretty good quarterback situation there in such and such town. Well, they don't have a good enough quarterback situation that Colin Kaepernick wouldn't be a good addition to the quarterback room. And so all kinds of things that create more weariness. But at least in the NFL's case, it wasn't virus related and it wasn't politically related. It was just pure dollars. And I guess in any case, that was even worse. I guess that was even worse. In the context we're in, squabbling in baseball over money, talking about somebody's $31 million franchise tag, what its impact on the salary cap is. I just think it rings hollow with me a lot of the time. I can't imagine that it really is annoying to people. I don't see how you dig into that as far as interesting and engaged information that somebody is arguing and quibbling about millions of dollars when they've got millions of dollars. It's more millions of dollars. How can we keep from losing this amount of millions of dollars, even though our franchise is worth billions of dollars? Do I sound fatigued about that? Yes, absolutely the case. And it comes in this context when there are far, far more important things to talk about. And maybe as I grow older, the figures, they're just numbing. When somebody was making $3 million, that's more money than making years and years and years. But $31 million is, you quit tomorrow. and he's going to make 37. If he doesn't sign a long-term contract, the figure's $37 million the next year, and then it's $58 million or something the year after that. And Patrick Mahomes is going to get, $1 bazillion. And so then the franchise tag for other quarterbacks will go up. And, it's white noise. It's white noise for me right now, and maybe it's just the times we live in, but that's the phrase I will use, white noise. White noise, cash fatigue. There you go. Finally, a couple light notes. I'm sure a lot of Kansas City sports fans watched the ESPYs last night. There was definitely a Chiefs tinge to it. I didn't watch it. Frankly, I forgot it was even on. I really never have pretty much watched the ESPYs, maybe the first couple of years. It was kind of a novelty, and this was a virtual ESPYs, so it held even less interest to me. But there were some fun Kansas City connections, and some of the comic actors who are from Kansas City participated, and I'm sure people get some smiles out of that, and maybe that was a great way to end their Father's Day. I didn't see it, but if it made smiles for you, if it made you feel a Super Bowl glow, again, bravo. Bravo. And finally, the impact of Patrick Mahomes is so great that now Whataburger is going to come to Kansas City. As many of you know, I don't eat burgers. I haven't eaten red meat for decades. So Whataburger coming here to me is completely irrelevant. But fancy, famous burger places moving from one part of the country to another is kind of a cool thing. It's a cool thing in a context, and it's just a cool little thing, because something that's sort of a forbidden fruit. Like back in the day when I lived in the East and you couldn't get Coors beer, and I could bring it back from college and sell it for 5 times the amount per 6-pack or case. It's kind of like that with Whataburger or In-N-Out or any of these places where they suddenly come to town and everybody says, that's the greatest burger. That's my favorite burger. I had it when I was in Texas. I had it when I was in Arizona. And now the influence of Patrick Mahomes, who first of all requested or got a bunch of packs of ketchup from Whataburger, and obviously he was raised in Texas, and that's where this particular chain started. And so now Patrick Mahomes won't just have to go visit old friends in Texas Tech to get himself a Whataburger. He'll be able to go out to Lee Summit, which is where the first Whataburger will be put in place. And for many people, they will say, that's a great burger, and other people say, that's an overrated burger. And hey, that's a discussion that's more fun than Dak Prescott's $31 million franchise tag. I'll tell you that. So I say bravo Patrick Mahomes and bravo Whataburger for putting a silly smile on people's faces. See, I actually managed to end with a smile here on Monday Musings, Danny Sports Wrap, and the gloom is thick, but we still try to cut through it every now and then, even if it takes a Whataburger.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.